Oh, hi there. You just caught me in the middle of refreshing on folk tales and fairy tales. You know, I'm currently in my daughter's bedroom, her nursery, and it's such a great place to revisit old stories like this one. Now, maybe you've actually heard of this story before, and maybe you haven't, and that's okay. I'll give you a clue. Does anybody know who this is? Some of you might have said Cinderella, and you'd be right. But did you know her name is actually Ella? And her story is really powerful because it's all about self-empowerment and overcoming struggles. And that's the story we're going to talk about today. I'm so excited to share it with you. Right? Let's get started. Okay, actually, before we get started, there's a few things I want to tell you. So, the version of this story that we're going to be reading today is from the Brothers Grimm. Now, the Brothers Grimm, come on, this is really cool, is two brothers. They decided that because they love folklore so much, they were going to travel all over Europe. Now, folklore typically was traditionally told just through verbal storytelling. And they decided, hey, we should write this stuff down because we have grown up with it, our family has grown up with it. I would like to spread it across Europe and see if we have the same stories or what makes us different. So they travel all of Europe and they write down these stories. So Cinderella was one of those stories, and they actually found out there was lots of different versions of it. So in this version of the story, we begin kind of in a similar way with a young, beautiful girl named Ella. She hasn't gotten her nickname yet. Does anybody else have a nickname that they maybe want to share, or a nickname that maybe made them feel kind of sad? That's what's going to happen with Ella. So Ella opens up the story letting us know how much she loves her family, how much she loves spending time with them, when suddenly her mother becomes very, very sick and is going to die. She comes to her bedside and she wants to know what she can do for her mom. I bet she was probably really scared. I know I would be really scared too. I would do anything for my mom. And her mom says, make me a promise that you will always be gentle and kind. And Ella accepts the promise. And when her mom dies, she continues to live out her life as being gentle and kind to all creatures, human and animal. So fast forwarding just a little bit, Ella is now a little bit older. Her father believes that his daughter needs a mother figure to help raise her into being a young lady. So he marries a woman that has been widowed before and that has two daughters. When they come in, they're not very nice to Ella, and they treat her more like a servant than a daughter or a stepsister. So they start to do very mean and hurtful things to her, like not allowing her to sleep in her own bedroom, and she has to sleep by the fire. Now, by a fireplace, have you ever noticed that black stuff that is right in front of the wood when it's burning? Sometimes when it burns, it breaks off a little bit and it lands into that pit that's very dark. That is called soot or cinder. And that's how Ella gets her nickname. So because she has to sleep so close to the fire to stay warm throughout the night, since she can no longer sleep in her bed, the next morning she comes up and has to serve her new stepmother and stepsisters breakfast. Now they see that her face, because she slept so close to the fire, actually has some of that cinder left on it. So they decide to call her Cinderella. And it's a name that wasn't very nice, a name that made her feel like she was no longer herself. Has anybody ever been teased or bullied and made to feel like they're different than they are, or maybe the differences that they have are not good differences? Well, that's how Cinderella started to feel. She felt like she really lost who she was once her father had passed away. and all that was left was her stepmother and her stepsisters. But she remembered her promise to her mother and always told herself to be good and faithful and kind. And she continued to believe that life would be okay as long as she followed her mother's promise. This is the part of the story where we start to see some of those magical nature elements that I was talking about. So, since Ella's very sad and she wants to find something that's just going to make her feel just a little bit better with how her life is going, she goes to her mother's grave and she plants a hazelnut tree where she starts to tend this tree. Now one day, a magical bird comes flying by, and this bird allows her to have beautiful clothes, beautiful shoes, anytime that she wishes. Now, that's a big difference from the story that we kind of know already. Now, the ball. The king decides that there's going to be a big ball. Now, a difference with this ball is that it's going to last 3 days. So, usually we hear the story with it only being 1, but this time it's 3. So she really gets to know the prince when she goes. Now, a similarity that we all know is that her evil stepmom and sisters do not allow her to go to the ball. They constantly are making up tasks for her to make it impossible for her to go. So those are some similarities. But Cinderella has a magical bird friend, and this bird creates a beautiful ball gown and golden slippers for her to wear to the ball. Again, another difference, because we think of Cinderella when you think, oh, the glass slippers, right? Can you imagine having glass shoes? I guess the gold slippers are a little bit more practical, probably a little bit more comfortable, don't you think? So she goes and she meets the prince, and they really hit it off. They really like each other a lot. But every time that the prince is about to find out her name, she always slips away because she's not supposed to be there. That's not something she's supposed to be doing. She doesn't want to get in trouble, right? I know I'd be scared to get in trouble. Would you be scared to get in trouble? I think so. So finally, the prince decides on the 3rd night that he wants to know this beautiful girl's name, and he is going to figure it out by making a plan. Now he puts on the carpet, on the stairs leading up to the ball, after everybody has already arrived, he has the servants put pitch down on the steps. Now pitch is kind of like a sticky kind of like substance, so that way when she runs away and she doesn't want to share her name, her shoe pops off and she loses it. Now that makes a lot more sense to me than in the original stories we've kind of heard before, where it just pops off, she leaves it behind because she's in a hurry, but there's a reason why it gets stuck. So that's kind of fun to know that difference. But he's gonna use that magical slipper to figure out who his dream girl is by having an all-out search party throughout the entire land to see who the slipper fits. And every time, because it's a magical slipper, every time that somebody who is not Ella puts the shoe on, it does not fit. So finally, they make their way to Ella's house. And so when the prince makes it to Ella's house, they decide, okay, we're gonna ask how many people are here. The stepsisters, they decide to come up with a very devious plan. They think they can outsmart the prince. But do you think it works? No, it doesn't work. They even go as far to cut off some of their toes because they want to fit in this slipper so badly. But no, Still doesn't work. And a magical bird stands outside of their house. It's perched right out front, and it tells the prince what the sisters have done and how they're hiding Cinderella and how that she was actually the one that the prince fell in love with. So their plan is spoiled, and Cinderella tries on the slipper and it fits. So the prince knows that's his real princess and quickly marries Cinderella. But in the Brothers Grimm version, the stepsisters, they can get away with being naughty. No, and her stepmother does not get away with being naughty. They actually are punished and told that they need to work out in the fields, and some little details are kind of scary. But I will share that they do work out in the fields with a lot of birds looking at them. So I think that's pretty creepy. Do you think that would be kind of creepy? So that's the story of Cinderella. And now you know some fun facts to go along with it that you can share with your friends and kind of show off a little bit of how much you know about English literature. So thank you for joining me in my daughter's nursery and listening to the story of Cinderella and by the Brothers Grimm. So I'll see you next time. Bye.